Jasmine Ashton, who's on our Harvest Council. It's our Young Professional Board. She's been with New Roots for 4 or 5 years doing all the really sexy behind-the-scenes work, like project management. So thank you for the hookup. So, who here loves vegetables? What's your favorite vegetable?
All of them.
All of them? No favorite?
Yellow beet watermelon. Well, you said vegetables.
Yellow watermelon.
But you said vegetables, right?
No, that's okay. You take fruit too.
Yellow beet watermelon.
We grow them well in Kentucky. Who else? Anybody want to? Which one?
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower. It's like the new rice, right?
It's cauliflower.
You could do anything with it. So you can see I'm really obsessed with vegetables. I'm probably the most veggie obsessed person you will ever meet. Ever. And I've always been this way. And I'm going to show you a picture just to prove it. See? That's me and my brother in New Jersey, being very veggie obsessed with my different cousins' room. And I grew up in suburban New Jersey, surrounded by farms. So I was into local food way back then in the early 70s, when it wasn't even like there was no such thing as foodie, because that's just what was natural to us, And I grew up with a single mom, working mom, who didn't have a lot of money, but always was able to put fruits and vegetables on the table for us. And then, to make a long story short, I ended up, see that's me, in about an hour away on our land that we lived on in southern Indiana, in Paoli, where I decided I was going to leave the corporate world and be sort of a back to the lander, and I was not a very good farmer. And I had a really hard time getting work in my field. I'm trained in environmental economics, believe it or not. I was using my work to protect public land. So I figured, well, at least I'm living on near public lands. So I fell into kind of a precarious situation and found myself edging toward food insecurity, especially fresh food insecurity, because there wasn't any way for me to get any local food. And in fact, the only place to get food in Paoli pretty much before we started a farmer's market, which I'll tell you about, is Walmart. So here I was, I'm a city girl, I'm from New York, and I thought, I'm living in a farming community, right? I can get vegetables. How lucky, and then started to realize I was surrounded by industrial agriculture. So does anybody know what I mean by that? What do you think? I'll let you finish chewing.
Crops that are grown and then sold off to major food producers.
Right, fed like soybeans and corn to feed cattle and pigs and goats, etc. So I didn't know all that corn, like humans couldn't eat it. I didn't know humans really weren't eating the soybeans. And so I started to talk to my neighbors, a lot of them were Amish farmers, and my other neighbors who weren't farmers but were eaters like me and loved veggies, and started to wonder, what could we do in this community? It is one of the most limited resource communities in all of Indiana. 20,000 people in Orange County, and so I was working with a very low-income population, both the Amish and non-Amish, and started to organize, which is what I know how to do. When there's a problem, I'm all about don't mourn, organize. Start talking to people and start organizing. And we organized ourselves into a nonprofit. That was one of 4 nonprofits I was to found. So I'm a serial nonprofit creator. So New Roots is just my 4th one, and we started a farmers market, which is now in its 19th year, and it has, it's one of the largest in all of Indiana and one of the most popular. Won one of the top 10 farmers markets in the country a few years ago, and yet a very limited resource community, pooling their energy and time and money to be able to buy local food. So I was then recruited to come here to Louisville to work for a statewide farming advocacy association to try to replicate what I had done, and I ran into a lot of issues here that I hadn't run into in a rural, food insecure community. So this is a map of Louisville, and these green spots are the neighborhoods that New Roots works in. So our mission is to ignite community power for fresh food access. And we organize in South Louisville, West Louisville, East Downtown, across the river. And These neighborhoods are what might be called by the USDA food deserts. Have you heard of that term? And a lot of organizers are moving away from using that term because it's a term that defines a neighborhood in form as its deficits. So already, you know, you're talking about a neighborhood in a way that is defining it as lacking. So a lot of organizers around the country use the term food apartheid, and especially it was coined by Karyn Washington in the Bronx, who does similar work to what we're doing. And so we found that these neighborhoods, through USDA research, are experiencing a hard time getting to grocery stores. So people in these neighborhoods have to drive between a half a mile and a mile to get to a grocery store. So the grocery stores per capita is a lot lower in those neighborhoods. So really there's about 2 neighborhoods to 80,000 people in West Louisville. As you know, the Kroger, right, that was, I think I have this is the Kroger that left downtown Louisville. We now have no grocery store in downtown Louisville. So there are like thousands of people who can't walk anymore, who don't have vehicles. I have friends in this situation. They can't buy what they need except for going to the Family Dollar store now. You know, my friend pays $12 to have her food delivered from Valley Market. So as a result of all this, the historic redlining and food apartheid, as you all know, working for Humana Corporation, we're experiencing then health inequities, you know, and a rise in food-related illnesses that many of them can be preventable if we had access to this, you know, beautiful, fresh, local, organic food. And of course, we have more fast food per capita in West Louisville, this is West Broadway, than any other street in the entire state of Kentucky. And so then that leads a lot of people to call this neighborhood a food swamp, right? Because it's not really like a desert. There's not that there's nothing there. There's a lot of something there. But again, you know, as an environmentalist, I don't like using, you know, ecosystems like desert and swamp in a derogatory way. I don't know if you're familiar with, you know, the work that you do as to what is the result of all this food apartheid. This really blew my mind. That 7% of us are eating the required fruits and vegetables. So we're really behind a lot of the other states and don't really have quite the culture of health that a lot of the other states have. And so so initially what we tried to do when I came here to Louisville is start farmers markets. And I had a really hard time getting farmers to show up in neighborhoods where the majority of the families struggle with limited resources. And you can imagine, if you're a local farmer, especially an organic farmer, you're going to go where the money is, individual families having enough money to pay retail prices for organic food. So some of what we tried to do at first is get partnerships with local entrepreneurs like these two who actually set up in the Humana building, too. This is at Spalding, that same year, to buy from farmers and then resell in locations, but this is like at Spalding and different areas of the community that don't have grocery stores or can't support a farmer's market. But what that happens then is that the amount of money that they had to sell the food for, the margin they had to make, made the food even more expensive or just as expensive as a farmer's market. So that wasn't a very good idea. The areas of the community, like at Smoketown and Mezquite Middle School, where we were able to recruit organic farmers to set up, they were not able to sell the amount of food they needed to sell because neighborhood folks were showing up and they couldn't afford to pay that $4 for a bunch of kale or $4 for a pound of tomatoes. So all of these ideas, we tried and failed. 2 years, really, literally banging my head against the wall, you know, looking for a solution. And so I then met this guy, and he is the founder of Fresh Stop Markets in Cleveland, Ohio. He lives in Atlanta now. His name is Maurice Small. And he basically explained something to me that I knew inherently in my bones, and I think you all know, that maybe one family alone can't afford to buy fruits and vegetables at retail prices, but families pooling their resources, having big buying power, then as a group they can negotiate wholesale prices with the very same farmers and guarantee a market to farmers. that in the beginning of the growing season. So like right now is our forecasting season at New Roots. So we're right now trying to figure out what do we want the farmers to grow for the summer, because they're buying their seeds right now. And so once we make that commitment to local organic farmers, then we're able to get those prices we need. And it doesn't matter who pays what. As long as we have the right ratios, right, to get that bottom line wholesale price, everybody can eat no matter what they pay. So that's the way the Fresh Stop Market model works, is that families pool their money a few days before the markets pop up. So there's a pop-up market, and we're going to be in 7 locations this year. They pop up from June to the end of October, every other week. Families put their money in the pot, SNAP food stamps or cash debit credit. A few days before the market, we close it out. We send that order to the farmers that work. We work with about 50 statewide, but here in Louisville we work with about 7. But one main farmer, Rootbound Farm in Crestwood, Kentucky. It's one of the largest organic farms in the region with 20 acres, and we're one of the largest purchasers of organic food in the region, believe it or not. 70% of our shareholders identify as having limited resources, so they live at 185% of poverty or below. And that group of people, along with higher income families, have for the last 8 years since we founded New Roots in 2010 been growing this movement to become, like I said, one of the largest purchasers of organic food. And so we pop up, like I said, every other week. So we pick a location at the beginning of the year. For example, West Louisville this year, we're going to be at Chef Space on 18th Muhammad Ali. We forecast probably about 120 families will come every other week, put their money in the pot. Like I said, 70% we forecast will be limited resource. They show up to get their food. And when I say show up, I mean it's such an understatement, right, Jasmine? It's like a huge party. We call it a sort of a cross between a pop-up family reunion and a fruit and vegetable flash mob. And the reason why we pop up the way we do, meaning tents, tables, vegetables are displayed. Each table gets a vegetable. Each table gets a veggie cheerleader, which is a shareholder who volunteers their time to cheer on that vegetable. And you could be our cauliflower guy, for example, because you love cauliflower. You could do watermelon, you could do kale, whatever, and you are behind that vegetable, and we usually do say pick your favorite vegetable, so that there's an interaction in a very organic way between the shareholders about how to fall in love with these vegetables. Because so many of us have been isolated from this food, sometimes for generations, and so it's a matter of having information and recipes passed back and forth between families, as opposed to a more top-down, we're here to educate you, we're the experts, you should do this, you should do that, you should eat this. It's more like, here's what you purchased, you pre-purchased, you knew you were going to put your money in the pot for seasonal organic food. This is what's in season, this is cauliflower, here's what you can do with it. And the positive peer pressure in combination with the diversity, with the music, with the smell of a chef or culinary enthusiast showing up to do a cooking demo, the sight of the colors of all the vegetables, all the senses ignited, creates this culture of healthy eating. But not only healthy eating, local organic food, which I don't think is a luxury. I think this is a basic human right that all of us get to eat this food, because this is what's going to keep us healthy. It's what's going to keep our families, from not feeling socially isolated is the other thing. And I know you're working a lot on that in Humana as a social determinant of health. Well, we have leaders that run these markets. I am the only full-time staff member now at New Roots. We have one Vista, and then we're going to have part-time seasonal interns, etc. And so we rely on our volunteer power to pop up the markets, to do a lot of our community organizing, meaning giving talks like this, going door to door, getting the word out, and also to be able to be the veggie cheerleaders, be the check users, etc. A lot of those leaders are limited resource seniors who would otherwise be shut in and not doing a whole lot of other work. So they showed up, let's say a senior showed up as a shareholder, that's what we call our customers. And then we we asked him, what do you think about coming and like being a greeter? Really? I could do that. Or if you're disabled, you don't have, you could be, sitting down, greeting people. And then we start to really, work on it over the years to build people into really big leadership positions, like board positions, etc. So I'll stop for questions now about the model. Is there questions? No?
It's just like it's kind of based on a CSA, right? Except we don't have this big outlay. Or how's it different?
Yeah, does everybody know about community-supported agriculture? Is anybody here a member of a CSA? Who is your farmer?
Bar farm.
Bar Farms is one of our farmers. So the idea, and thank you for mentioning this, about 30 years maybe we've been doing this in Kentucky, where you can give your money up front to a farmer. Let's say you give $800. In exchange, you're sharing the risk of that farm over the growing season. You agree to get a box of whatever's in season of, let's say, 6 items every week for 22-week growing season. And so it's a little bit like that, the Fresh Stop Market model. The way it's different is our families, 70% of them cannot afford to pay at the beginning of the season, so they pay as they go. We accept SNAP benefits. That's food stamps. We're certified. And the other difference is, normally when you go to a CSA pickup, you get your box and you leave. What this is a lot of effort, and I should say an expensive effort, to have a party, to change people's minds, about this food. It takes a lot of ingenuity and muscle to get people to eat their veggies around here, I'm telling you. You have no idea. There will be times when I'm personally at the market and people will look at some of this food, like they'll go buy the beets and go, oh, and kind of like, even though they've paid for it, tiptoe around it. You gotta be a really good positive veggie cheerleader and say, oh, look, these are beets. Yeah, I know they're beets, and my aunt, my grandmother used to boil them, and they stink, and they're ugh. And then, that's when the conversation can turn to, well, have you ever tried to roast them? And then some people might stop, roast them? I never thought about it. That's when they get really sweet and delicious, and just put a little bit of sea salt on it, or whatever conversation is happening from that personal experience to try to get people to take the food. Because some of the food is really different. We have purple potatoes, for example, and who said that? Right? We have pink, marbled potatoes, and this keeps people really on their toes and engaged. Whoa, wait, last week you had yellow, and now you have pink? And how is that different, And then there's a whole conversation to get people talking to each other. Right, so we source from multiple farmers, and Bar Farm, Rootbound Farm, Valley Spirit Farm, Ashmore Farm are our main suppliers of organic vegetables. And then we have fruit farmers. It's very hard to grow fruit organically in Kentucky because of the humidity, so a lot of our fruit is sprayed with fungicide, but we try to source as best we can. So strawberries, blueberries, peaches, watermelon, apples, pears. Yeah, I think that's all the fruit we get. People really like fruit a lot better than veggies because they're sweet. Any?
I'm clearly your audience advocate here.
Yeah.
But I guess I got two comments and a question. My first comment is thank you for pointing out the irony of us serving pizza on the day we're talking about.
Poor Chris. I was like, I'm vegan. Where's my vegetables?
The other thing is just talking about the variety of colors of leaves and vegetables. One time I ended up with a white sweet potato, and I did not realize it until after I had cooked it and put it like sour cream. But my question about the Fresh Stops, I've done it before, and I've only done like the $25 fully resourced people. Can you pay for it at the very beginning of the season for everything?
You can, and you could also donate. Like, let's say you're 20, so it's a sliding scale. So we have $6 and $12 shareholders. Those are families 185% of poverty or below, or on WIC or SNAP. Although we don't require seeing any proof of that. Like, we're not in the business of making people prove, If you're over that, we suggest you pay 25 or 40. We were kind of thinking we may end up with maybe even a 60. Because that is the true cost of all this work I'm explaining to you, getting that food from A to B. You even though the food costs $19 wholesale, there is an extra $40 that goes into paying like the Beatmobile, which is our truck, you know, for the gas, my salary, insurance, containers. So yeah, we have a lot of options. A lot of people will come in at 25 and they may donate once in a while when they can afford it. And because we have families that cannot pay anything. I have an older woman who is so ill from overeating and eating bad food. She's, you know, her doctor told her finally, you know, you need to do something, you know, and so, but she goes to food pantries because she doesn't, I think she lives on $700 a month, disability, $16 a month food stamps. So we just said, keep your $16 a month and we're gonna find you a share. And I went on Facebook, 10 minutes later, I had all her food paid for the whole season, you know. And then she became a shut-in when she broke her hip. So then we had to get a volunteer to deliver her food. But she ate her food.
What is the current total season cost?
So if you're at 250, then you're going to be paying 275 for the whole season. Because that's 11, we pop up 11 times. And we are in locations, we're at Chef Space, we're at the new Logan Street Market. Has anybody heard of what's about to happen over there? So they reached out to us and said, we don't want just rich people coming into this market. And that's really what's about to happen because this food is going to be expensive. And they don't really have, they think they're going to have a farmer's market on Sundays. You know, which is expensive again, and that's a neighborhood that has 60% poverty. So what are they, you know? So they reached out to us and we said, we will come, we'll pop up there every other Tuesday. So we're gonna be there when you enter the indoor market, which also has all the windows open, sort of like indoor, outdoor. We'll be there. And we'll also be in Berrytown, in Anchorage, for the extreme East End folks, and then the Jewish Community Center, and New Albany, Sojourn.
Also, so every market is every other week, but they're on different days.
Yes,
So theoretically, someone, if you wanted your fresh fruit and veggies more than bi-weekly, you could just, you know, be a member of multiple markets.
And we do, we have people who move around because they want food every week. So if you're going every other week to Louisville, you could stick in a Smoketown, Shelby Park in the middle. And also people like to meet other people. So one of the most incredible things about the markets that happened kind of by accident when we realized $12 shareholders could not afford, we could buy the amount of food we needed to feed everyone, we started to call our wealthier friends and said, you gotta come to Shawnee and buy $25 shares. And then everyone who was coming down to Shawnee or within Shawnee who could pay 25 were like, wow, this is really fun. I get to meet new friends. I get to meet people I would have never met. So now our markets are really like cross-cultural, interfaith, age. We have people going every which way because you may live in West Louisville, but you work downtown, so you're going to stop at Smoketown, you know. And I engaged my synagogue, which is Adep Jeshurun, and I told them you can't go to the Jewish Community Center. You have to go to West Louisville to get your food. My rabbi included. So they're on their 5th year of traveling. So they pass, you know, 5 supermarkets on the way, but it's important to them to meet new people and to be out in the community. You know, now they don't want to leave their friends, even when we opened up the JCC.
Can you talk a little bit about how the market's changing this year for more availability of shoe options?
Yeah, so we really struggle with how to accept the money for the orders. That's where you all maybe could come in because you're all brilliant software folks. So we had an online ordering system that was really a mess because there was a lot of human error and because we couldn't afford a custom system. And then our families on SNAP are not allowed to use food stamps online. Even though we've heard through the new Farm Bill you can, but the government shut down, so no one's telling us what to do about that future. But so what we're doing, so it used to be where you ordered through new routes to the farmers. Now we're going to cut out new routes and go directly to the farmers, and you'll use a CSA platform called Farmigo. And so you will go on and order directly from the farmer your share. And this year we're going to have customizable shares because a lot of the feedback we got from surveys was, I love it, but I think there was like 40% of the people surveyed said, be more apt to buy every time if I could customize that chair. Because quite frankly, I get sick of butternut squash in the fall. Like they were very, very descriptive what they don't like. You know, because this is very limited resources and you don't want to waste your money. And so it will be fall and you'll see butternut squash and you go, nah, I don't want that, but give me some extra kale. You know, there's just so much people can customize because it is what it is. It's Kentucky. It's a certain part of the growing season. Not everything is, you know, we have to wait for the tomatoes at the end of July. You are not getting tomatoes in June, so don't even say anything. Because that's all anyone really wants to eat is tomatoes. Because even if you don't eat veggies, you order like a Subway, you eat tomatoes, that's a vegetable. Well, it's really fruit. Can I show you some pictures? To see. So just like a very quick history of New Roots. It's our early farmer liaison at West Chestnut Street Baptist Church with one of our farmers. So we over the years have identified leaders in the community we call farmer liaisons. They work with us to tell the farmers what they want to eat, and that the farmers in turn share their knowledge about, well, we're organic farmers, like I said, so you can't only get tomatoes. Like, you got to take the turnips, you got to take the kale, because then you use a lot of less pest control. And that's how you're going to get organic food. So over the 8 years, we've all learned a lot, you know, together. Just an initial Fresh Stop Market. And some of our initial board members organizing the Park Hill community. It's our byline, like I said. I'm going to skip over all the wordy stuff. This is just an example of the flow of how we work. So we don't wait for, we wait for someone to contact us. Like, we don't go to a community and say, we want to come in here with a Fresh Stop Market. So we wait for folks to call us and say, we've heard about you. Surely at the beginning I had to call and try to recruit. And initially we started working with churches. This year I think we only have 3 churches out of the 7, because we're finding that partnerships with the private sector are a lot more fruitful and a lot less aggravating, just to be perfectly honest, than working with nonprofits, because they have the money. The resources are not with the churches that we work with or the nonprofit sector. So for example, we have a partnership with Facilities Management Services, FMS, which is a janitorial services company. They clean buildings. And then we have a partnership with Heine Brothers Coffee. So they're both located headquarters in the Portland neighborhood where our office is. They wanted a Fresh Stop Market in Portland. They guarantee us 62 families for the one business, FMS, and 15 for the Heine Brothers. They will pay as a health and wellness benefit for the fresh food for their employees. And it's really, it gets me choked up because it just was the most amazing Fresh Stop Market. We had a lunchtime every other Friday in the back courtyard in Portland, and the janitors would show up to get their paycheck, and then $5 every other week was deducted from their paycheck, $20 paid by the CEO, and they showed up to get their paycheck and fill their bags with this beautiful food. And we did a survey at the end of the season, and you know, it was like between 97 and 100% satisfaction, all these different questions. They loved it. And 100% said they would do it again. 100% said they're more likely to stay at that business because they offer programs like this. And Heine Brothers too, you know, because they can't pay more than $10 an hour for the janitor. So how are they going to afford to eat? So the fresh food. So the way we ended up, though, there with FMS is they did a survey of their employees. What is it that keeps you up at night? And the number one was health and food. So that's how we ended up. So that's a long story to just say, we wait to be pulled into a community, so we really have that buy-in. You know, we identify our leaders by doing organizing in the community. We have to raise money. It costs probably about $30,000 to really pop up that Fresh Stop Market and do all this organizing for each market over the year. Forecast is where we are now. So we have our funding for the season, although we have, I'll talk about that in a minute, you know, trying to be more financially sustainable is my number one focus this year. We pop up during the growing season, and these were our numbers last year, 1,600 families. too shabby.
Other than this particular presentation, has nobody from Humana contacted you about having a fresh hop at one of our sites?
So we got contacted by, who's your food caterer? Sodexo. And they were really excited about doing a bid to get the food contract again and wanted us to be at the waterside. And then I never heard anything. So I don't know what's going on with that, but that would be amazing, right? If we could pop up there and there could be some corporate buy-in. And so I've been working with someone there, but it just kind of fell off her, everybody gets busy, but I do, I'll sync you up. That would be awesome. So just a way for us to show just how we work, pollinators. So like Heine Brothers. So Scott Collum, the CEO of FMS, is a pollinator. We depend on him to find the shareholders through his leadership, and then we depend on them to remind shareholders to come pick up their food. This is like our #1 problem, is reminding people to buy their share and pick up their food. And so if they're going to do this for us, we love them and we want to clone them. And so we do these food justice workshops. We held one last night at the table with the U of L social entrepreneurship class, where we spent a lot of time talking about Kroger's. The students were just very kind of disturbed to hear about the discrepancy between the Kroger's depending on what neighborhood you live in. I don't think they had ever heard that before. I don't think they knew what to do or say about it. So that's just an example. We talk about different things in the classes, controversial topics. And some of our leadership from Sun Valley, at a mock fresh stop market, so we run mock markets to train our veggie cheerleaders, so she's cheerleading over there. And this is broccoli, which this was 2 years ago. Last year there was a seed fungus that wiped out our entire crop of broccoli. So we did not have broccoli at the end in the fall. But this year they fixed that. They're going to boil the seeds. It was as simple as that. And this is our root-bound farmers with our farmer liaisons forecasting last year. That's our office, that's Strawberry Man. He's a very important character to everyone at New Roots. He used to sell strawberries in the neighborhood back in the day. So he was like a very famous food distributor to people kind of in their like 60s or 70s. Who grew up in Portland and West Louisville, and somebody painted him and gave him to us. Just, you don't want to see this. Just an example of like, we forecast down to the very tomato. We know exactly what's coming. Not flaky. So you could see this was the year before for root bound. We are now at 150,000 last year. We went from 70 to 150. So you could see that we are a big part of their income in their portfolio. It's like, it's not, it's real business. That's just one farm, and the impact we've had on one small family farm. Just some of the pricing compared to, retail, and you see that, so, you're gonna go, look at that, too cheap, won't grow it. The difference between paying $3 a pint for a great tomato versus pooling our money and using cooperative economics. This is an invite to the Strawberry Jam Festival. These were our strawberry babies a few years ago. These are totally vegan, sugar-free babies. They grow up at fresh shop markets, and they are so, look how cute they are. And so May 16th on a Thursday, we're going to pop up a strawberry fresh shop market where you can pre-order gallons of strawberries. So we'll be doing that. And we'll have that on our website. That was last year. Their payment scale, that people look at to know what to pay. Happy farmers dropping off to happy shareholders in Lexington. So we have 2 markets in Lexington. What it looks like when you have 70 families eating and pooling their money. The amount of food dropped off. That's our volunteer at the JCC. He waits for the farmer and accepts the food on behalf of the other families. And this is our Beatmobile. I don't have a picture of the new, it's been wrapped with all kinds of crazy graphics. You have to go on Instagram. And what it looks like to pop up a market, and this is in Smoketown, it's really beautiful with our tents. Famous veggie cheerleader Pammy behind the fennel, that's a tough one to push, I'll tell you why. Fennel, if you could get somebody fennel, you are brilliant. I like it. We double dollars, so everyone who has SNAP, every share they buy, they get a free one through a federal grant. We're about to start a campaign to switch that funding from federal to state, so that the state of Kentucky will have the money to double shares. And so we really grew our SNAP population with that double dollar program. We're good. Shishito peppers. Anybody here like shishito peppers? Aren't they amazing? You blister them, right? What else do you blister? It's got its own word. Cool. Or more veggie cheerleaders. These kids are homeschooled, know more about vegetables. They were teaching me about how to use my Instapot a few months ago. This is a 7-year-old. Sarah. Unbelievable. So happy carrots. These are our chefs, some of our chefs who cook at the Fresh Stop Market. So anyone here can volunteer to be a chef. You don't have to be a chef. Be a culinary enthusiast. And we have Jasmine, who's going to be working on the Cook to the Root party. Sunday, April 7th is where you show up to have a cocktail, a beet cocktail, and sign up to be a chef or volunteer for the markets. And also to buy your shares. We're going to have a big night at the Portland Majestic. And so a newsletter we put out, beat with stories and recipes that go in the shares. That's a typical share you might get in the fall with the beets and peppers. And we have a farm tour every October where we bring our families out to Root Barren for hay rides, which is really awesome. Here's the Cook to the Root 2 years ago. And this was our operating budget before we lost our Humana Foundation grant. For $100,000. So this year we're working on a very bare bones budget of $180,000 to pop up 7 markets. So please pray for me or whatever it is you do to make sure I make it through the growing season. And that's, yep. We get a lot of calls from around the country, other communities like, how can I do this? And it's really frustrating because I don't have the money to help a lot of people, but we do have a small grant this year. And for the next 2 years from SARE, it's the warm and fuzzy arm of the USDA. I call it the Sustainable Ag Research and Education Grant, where we can partner with other organizations in the southern region to try to spread this model. So we're going to Arkansas next week to have our coming out party. And these are our main beliefs, and I think that's it. Yes. Oh. So I can also go online and show people. So to try to fill the $100,000 hole, which is a big hole to fill, what we're trying to do is, instead of going after big grants like this again, to try to fill that up with a lot of small donations. So the annual campaign is where you can become a monthly sustaining donor, kind of like you do with NPR, whether it's 5, 10, 25, 50, 100. You get a special vegetable designation when you give $50 a month, you're a berry believer. If you're $100 a month, you're the age of asparagus. So you get that joy. If you're 18, which doesn't fit into any other category, you're a bok choy. And either that or one lump sum donations, we're very interested in trying to get grassroots support. So please go online to newroots.org and you'll see the donate today. And if I have time, I'll pull it up. The other thing we're working on is trying to get corporate sponsors. So like you were talking about, maybe it's for 2020, where we have a company, maybe it's Humana Corporation, said, yeah, we do have that $30,000. We will support this pop-up market. Plus, we're going to kick in maybe another $20,000 to help subsidize the shares. So we're looking to companies who really care about whether their employees are happy and healthy. And to be happy and healthy, right, you gotta eat your vegetables. So a lot of companies do gym memberships, but you don't see a lot of food subsidies. The Louisville Health Department does have a subsidized CSA program with Root Bound for their employees.
And also the Harvest Council is accepting new members. So if anyone is interested in joining the Harvest Council, New Roots Young Professionals Board, we are accepting applications for new members. So if you want to reach out to me or Karen, we can point you in the right direction.
Can I go online very easily?
Wait,
Anyway.
It'd be a little bit of a, you have to get access to.
Yeah, that's okay. You could find the website, newroots.org. The other thing is, if you could, so this is what we need. Obviously, we want donors and investment, little small bits adding up to one big pot by the end of the year. We also need shareholders. So if you want to become a shareholder, if you want to bring in anyone in your family as a shareholder, if you want to donate shares to families you know that are struggling, or donate and let us find families that are struggling, we need that. We need, everyone who's a shareholder to volunteer if you can. It's really fun to be in a market, trust me. And we don't care. We pop up between 4:30 and 6:30 at most markets, so you can come from work, or you can maybe use some of your Humana hours to come a little early. And you get a lot of exercise by popping up those tents, and it's just so much fun and very joyful. You could come as a team, you could come individually, and I also need help spreading the word on social media. We have a pretty active Facebook site, you'll see, New Roots Inc., and we have a pretty active Instagram during the growing season. I'm kind of burnt out on it, but I'm going to try to get, my young professionals want me to be more active on that, but I'll get back in the swing of things. So, but there, we have really beautiful pictures and posts of all this great people and great group. Any other questions before I?
So I live over in Shawnee, and I think the last, maybe not the last one, one of the Christians, they handed me like a paper about, basically a shareholder-owned grocery store. Is that connected to Roots, or is that a separate?
It's a good question. So we know them, like some of them are our shareholders, one is even a farmer. So it's a group of people who are trying to open up this co-op grocery store. They've been at it for quite a while, about 3 years, and trying to get buy-in and investment, and they're really struggling. They think they want to locate in the Shelby Park Smoketown neighborhood. They did a lot of surveys, so we do know them. They are our friends, and I've been asked to be involved. It's just so hard when I'm running New Roots, so I hope that they can make some movement this season. And then there's some young woman in Shawnee I heard about from Louisville Forward that's looking to open a nonprofit grocery store. So we're going to be hopefully working with her one day on produce, because produce is really difficult. As you can imagine, the perishables stuff is alive, when it leaves the farm, and it's got to get to your kitchen alive, and it's delicate. And so that's why everybody struggles with this, it's very difficult. Anything else? Any ideas? All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.